Welcome to the Miss Esquire podcast, a community that truly believes that your network is your net worth. My name is Rahysa Vargas, and I'm the founder and host of the podcast.
I'm Trisha Widowfield, and I'm the Vice President of Miss Esquire and your co-host.
And we also want to start by thanking our sponsors that make every single episode possible. Littler is a law firm that is worldwide providing employment services. It's actually the largest in the world. So thank you again, Littler.
Also, Professional Interpreting Associates provides interpreting and translating services for various fields to provide effective communication. So we're super excited, speaking of Professional Interpreting Associates, to have the President and CEO, Pat Gutierrez. Pat is one of our OG members, and she has started with us over 4 years ago when we first started.
Yes, Pat, we're super excited to have you here. How do you feel?
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited, and I am really looking forward to this new stage, the next stage of growing Miss Esquire.
We love you. We're so grateful. But I always like starting, Pat, like just a warm conversation. And one of the things that I have found as growing my business, I had a conversation with my dad, and he was like, you know, the overnight success really took 20 years, right?
Correct.
It wasn't actually overnight. And I love that we get an opportunity to introduce and interview people that own their own businesses and have gone through, you know, different stages of businesses. And I would love to take your take on what do you think is the most instrumental seed that you planted in your career to get where you are today?
I think that integrity and ethics is fundamental for growing a business.
Right.
You have to know where you want to go to and how to do it in an ethical way.
And tell me a little bit about why you decided to be an interpreter, because it's not like a career that you hear about every single day. And how did you even get to, like, did you always know you wanted to be an interpreter at a young age?
Yes. As a child of immigrants back in the late 60s, there weren't too many Spanish-speaking people in New Jersey. And I was the first one to learn English, and I was the one interpreting at a very young age for my parents and for everybody else that came to the United States that we knew that didn't speak English. So it almost became like second nature to do it.
Where are you originally from, by the way?
I'm from Argentina.
Awesome. What part of New Jersey did you live in? This is like totally off. I'm not supposed to be talking about all of this. But anyways.
Bloomfield.
Oh, okay,
Bloomfield,
cool.
New Jersey.
My family migrated from Colombia to New Jersey too. But fun fact, I did not know that about that prior to this podcast. I was like, what?
Yes.
I was in New Jersey too, but we were in a totally different, we were in North Bergen. Do you know where that is?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, there's
Yes,
a lot
I
of
do.
Hispanic people in North
Yes,
Bergen.
there are. But then again, I'm much older than you. And when I moved to New Jersey, there weren't that many.
Yeah.
We were one of the few.
Yeah.
I was the only little girl in that whole school that spoke another language.
Wow.
And when you say that you started as a young girl interpreting, how old were you, and how?
Oh.
I mean, what kinds of things were you helping your family with?
I was helping them call the power company to turn the light on in apartments, going to doctor's appointments with my parents, in school with teachers, actually doing the conferences. I would be the one interpreting for my parents and the teacher.
And how old were you?
I was very young. No, I was about eight or 9 years
that
old.
is very young.
Yes.
Yeah. I recently have you seen that like clip or meme? Did you see the one I'm talking about where it was like at a airport where the little girl had to translate for like everybody at the counter?
It's very sad, but it's true. It's what children of immigrants have to go through.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, it's also very rewarding because it makes you aware of how intimidating and fearful it is when you don't understand the language, and how much of an impact communication has on people and just their well-being.
I love that you mentioned impact, because I think when prior to this interview and we had a conversation, you were like, I don't really have a voice when I'm in a room, because usually what Pat provides is services sometimes for attorneys, and she's interpreting depositions. And I litigated for many years of my life, and I found my time oftentimes, not with Pat because I didn't know Pat before this, but oftentimes because I know Spanish, I would have the client in the room that only spoke Spanish, and they were asking them questions, and then they would interpret it wrong. And I would have to stop them and be like, that's absolutely not what they just asked. And it's so important that that person, you know, is asked the correct question, because the outcome of the case can totally depend based on what they actually said, right?
If you specialize in the legal field, then you have to know the legal terminology. And like you said, it's so important to be precise and accurate. And that's why the motto of my company is when every word counts, because it truly does.
It's true.
It can make the difference, prevailing in a case
Yeah.
or saving somebody's life. It's that impactful.
I agree. And Trisha's not Hispanic. I don't know if you knew that about my
Gringa.
non-Hispanic friend over here. But what I love is like people that are not Hispanic don't know that we have like 17,000
right.
words that mean the exact same thing. And based on what country you're from, it could mean totally something different. I remember I told my mom, "You're gonna get a crack at this." I'm like, "Mom," in Spanish, "I'm gonna go take una deposición." She's like, "Oh my God, don't say that." But I meant to say deposition, but that's not the translation for
It's actually a
deposition, and it's a bowel movement. And she was like, "Why would you ever say that?" And I was like, obviously, this is how I would. But anyways, I was like, "Yeah, Mom, I'm gonna go take a deposition," and she's like, "Okay, never use that word again." But it's so important because, like you said, it could literally shift the entire conversation into something totally different.
I'll give you another example. Adjuster
Yeah.
is tasadora, and they use
Ajustador,
ajustador, and
and it's
that's the
not.
bra. So you have to be very precise in interpreting.
Yeah, I love it. So what I didn't like about that conversation, you're like, "I don't have the voice in the room." And I
True.
said, "You actually do, because you're probably the only person in that room that the client trusts."
Right.
And
True.
in that moment, because even as attorneys, I feel like oftentimes the clients, yes, they like us and they're going to definitely trust us more than the adversary
Right.
party for sure. But they're not going to trust us as much as you, because you're the one that's translating and really communicating what is happening in a room where they're scared. I mean,
And not only that, physically, we are the person nearest to them.
Right.
True.
And so when you interpret, you not only have to know what you are interpreting, but you also have to be comfortable enough so that the deponent or the claimant or the witness feels comfortable enough to also get their words out in the correct manner.
Now, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like all of your work isn't meaningful, because I think it is. And I always see people in the courtroom who don't know the language and they look so lost, and I feel so bad for them. But can you think of one example of where you've really had a meaningful impact in a case or on a client?
Yes. I actually have two. The first one is interpreting for Senator John Kerry at the G8 summit in the United Nations. I think that was the highest point in my career.
awesome.
But also when I had to interpret for a rape victim.
Oh, wow.
And it's very hard not to add your emotions in that moment. You know that you have to be precise and you have to get the exact meaning of everything they're saying, because one word can change the whole case.
yeah.
But at the same time, you have to be there almost like supporting in a silent way. So you're very professional at that moment, and then you leave, you go into the restroom, and then you cry.
Right.
Because as a woman, you feel for that person, but you can't show your emotion at
Now,
that point.
let me ask you, because that brings it out an interesting point. So, a lot of in deposition and testimony, people's emotions are what counts. And so if you're translating and it's a very emotional subject, I mean, are you able to inflect your own emotion into the translation, or is
We
that?
try not to. We can use our voice to maybe
Give an emphasis.
exactly emphasize, but we cannot show our emotions. We have to be very, and in depositions, you can't, you're only reading, right?
Right.
The transcript.
Yeah.
In a trial, you can see the emotion going through. So you're just the voice, and they can see the witness showing their emotions.
Yeah.
So it's always better.
Awesome. So what does it mean for you to give someone a voice?
It's very emotional for me because I think it's everything. I think communication is everything. It's a bridge to create peace in the world. You can do so much good with the right words and the right way of saying it, because it's not just about what you say, but how you say it.
Yeah.
So to me, and it's because of my career, but I think communication is everything in life.
I love that. I think first off, I just want to say I'm grateful that there are, because you're actually a really great interpreter, and
Thank you.
there are a lot of people, like some people are like, oh, so you can interpret that. I'm like, absolutely not. Do not, because the translation can be totally, obviously we just saw my example with deposition, so God knows what I would have said. But I think it's important because like I mentioned to you earlier, I think your voice matters so much that you're allowing people to feel secure and feel comfortable in something that's so uncomfortable, because the reality is everything that we do in a deposition, even for us, I mean, the first time we ever did it, it was scary. So imagine for somebody that like
Doesn't do it on a day-to-day, right?
yeah, and so it's giving them like a sense of security, but also at the same time it's allowing them to, especially I feel like here,
Yes,
and
that's
obviously
the other thing. Also, what are they talking about?
Right.
Imagine being in China and you are watching two people talk about you, but you don't understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine how that would feel, right? So it's also about what are they saying about me? How is what they are saying, how will it impact my life
Yeah.
and my family? Because it's not just one. Right now we're doing a lot of immigration cases,
Right.
and we see how the right interpreter, and that's where we specialize. We give white glove service, but also because we know exactly what each client needs, and we have immigration interpreters that only specialize in immigration.
I love that.
And it's not only about using the right terminology, but it's also about how do you accompany somebody in that moment. We have family law interpreters
Yeah.
that know how to deal with difficult divorces.
Yeah.
Tell us though, I mean, those different specialties, and you've done translating for me for medical issues.
Yes.
But as far as immigration or family, whenever you say you have an interpreter who specializes in that, what makes them special or sets them apart to make them specialize in immigration or in family?
Well, first of all, the terminology, right?
Yeah.
So we've got asylum, and when you have asylum interviews, there's usually credible fear of persecution. So you have to know maybe gang names, and you have to know even guns. You have to know.
Yeah, you have to be an expert in whatever they're going to really truly speak about.
Exactly. So it's always good to study the case so that when you're there, you know exactly what the interviewer will talk about. Or if you are workers' compensation, if I said to anybody, what is an MMI? People don't know. I know it's medical maximum improvement, but it's those things that make our interpreters, I think, stand out. They know the exact terminology, and it's up to us to to assign the correct interpreter to the right case.
Now, is it not just terminology, but also like cultural cues?
Yeah.
True.
Can you talk about a little bit about that?
Yes. So even though many countries speak Spanish, like Rahysa said, one word in Spain is not the same as in Colombia.
Right.
So it's and also even when you talk about cultural, it's also about how you stand or how you sit, right? Because you want to make sure that you make them understand that even if you're a female interpreter and you have a male witness, sometimes there could be a little they could be a little insecure. It's a woman. Just those cultural things that we have in our
Understood. Yes.
So it's about being secure in what you do and transmitting that assurance to the witness.
Yeah, you're going to find this. I have a lot of funny stories about me not knowing Spanish. I'm actually no Spanish, but
You speak very well Spanish. You do.
Spanish is my first language, for the record. Okay, so I do know Spanish really well, but it's funny because my son is actually in a fully bilingual
Nice.
school. So it's an immersion program, which is awesome. And he comes up to me all the time and he's like, Mom, how do you say elf in Spanish? And I was like, okay, where are all these words I've never used when I was younger? So I feel like a big part of it is, even though people think that they know a language, if you've never used those words, legal terminology is an example of that. I mean, mine was elf, but legal terminology is something that we don't have on a day-to-day basis. So even somebody explaining something to somebody, they may not even know, what it really means. So then I figured out that even in Spanish, you could say elfo, or you could say duende, or you could say, So I was like,
Thank
wow, there are
goodness.
so many words for elf.
The word elf never came up in a demo. Thank goodness, because I had to think about it as you were saying it, right?
Like he tells me, and I'm like, ¿Cómo se dice Siri?
Aw.
But tell me a little bit about, obviously we've had the privilege to see you over the last 4 years kind of evolved. And funny thing about Pat, and I wanted to mention this to our viewers, is, you know, Pat is obviously a non-attorney, and we do have non-attorneys because people always get confused because the name is Miss Esquire. And we, from the very beginning, when we started in-person chapters, we really felt that there was a need. Obviously, we need your services, and we have non-attorneys that partner up with us and cross-collaborate, which I think makes our network so valuable, because now we can provide our clients with resources, people that we trust like Pat, for services that we need on a daily basis. But one of the things that I love about Pat, so before I was introduced to her by Walter, which is her
My son-in-law.
my son-in-law. You're my son-in-law. Your son-in-law. Your son-in-law. And he was actually my banker at the time. And he was like, I need to introduce you to my mother-in-law. She is fire. She no, she's fantastic. She owns her own business. And I was like, for sure. But then I looked up her name in our Miss Esquire group, and so many people had recommended Pat as an interpreter. I was like, I love this, that she's already been somebody that in our 10,900 attorneys, but who's counting, community, people have already trusted her, right?
Which I had no idea of, because as a non-attorney, I cannot belong to Miss Esquire. So it was great to hear.
Well, you can belong to Miss Esquire, just not the Facebook group.
Exactly. Yes. So sorry about that. Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so happy about Circle, because we have, which is something that you've just introduced, correct?
Yeah. So the virtual platform. Yeah. So, but what's fun about Pat is, like, so 4 years ago she came and she was like, I'm so nervous to speak in person. Like, I want to say, like, the first couple of months, her getting up.
Even just like introducing yourself and what you do, which is, should come naturally to you, but you were so.
But what I said, we don't have a voice, I meant that great interpreters are invisible. So you should not be aware that there is an interpreter. You should be able to communicate with that interpreter being in the background. That's what I meant by not having a voice. We are used to being in the background and not having the spotlight on us. But I have grown so much. It was right after COVID. I had been home, working from home, and I had not had that daily interaction that I was used to. And it was hard for me. It was very hard. And both of you have just made it so easy. Even though I was nervous every time I went, you welcomed me with open arms, and I cannot be more grateful to Miss Esquire.
Thank you.
She stands up and she's like ready to go. Boom. How do you feel now? Do you feel like you feel a lot more comfortable?
Yes, I do feel more comfortable. I feel that I also believe in my product, which is something that I hadn't really talked about until Miss Esquire. I had a growing business and I was very successful, but I never had to get up and talk about my business. So as you see other professionals sharing, it just it gives you more confidence to talk about your product.
It's a culture where it's okay to celebrate yourself. And celebrate your business and your wins, and to say, this is why I'm good.
And as women, we don't always do that. I think we always say, oh, it's okay. I guess, like when somebody says, you look so pretty, and you go, I don't know. It's just something. No.
Not her.
Actually, Pat, I have the complete opposite syndrome. I don't know what it's called.
I'm looking good.
Like, I look great. Look at these shoes. You like these shoes, Pat? I love these shoes. Anyway, so I'm kidding. I think that, you know what, my dad always mentioned to me, he's like, you need to be very assertive in sharing yourself. Correct. And I think that's part of what our culture is really to, celebrate women. But if you believe everything that you are going to receive, that you're going to make it, that you're going to thrive, then people are going to follow that energy, right? Like people consume the energy around them. And I think that's so important. But what I love is that people have said in our group so often, and I think this is probably what you were mentioning, is like they will use Pat services. And then the next meeting, they'll celebrate Pat. They're like, Pat at last minute came through. She did a translation. It was fantastic. The client, she's had like all kinds of translations. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
didn't you recently have somebody?
So literally, I needed a Ukrainian translator in 5 minutes because there's a really good case coming in, and they wanted to talk to me at the hospital. I do medical malpractice, by the way. But they wanted to talk to me at the hospital,
Yeah.
and there was a good chance that if I couldn't speak with them right then, they would find somebody who could.
Right.
And so I called Pat. I was like, Pat, I need a Ukrainian interpreter in 5 minutes. And she was like, okay, I got you.
Yeah. So I think that has been a platform because, listen, it's great if you can sell yourself. And I think that if you exude that energy, it's fantastic. But something that's even more valuable is when people walk
Yes.
into the room and sell you. And they're like, hey, her services are fantastic. She's reliable, last minute. Her translations are fantastic. And so I think obviously we're not John Kerry, using her
No.
on the what was it? The
G8.
G8 summit. But I think it's important. And I think that allows you to kind of grow and feel more secure.
And it also incentivizes you to use the members in your chapters. Right away you think, okay, who can I call for closing?
Right.
It's Rahysa, medical malpractice. It gives you such a great network to work with. And I think that's also great because you want to see the other members as
Right.
well receive referrals and you want to see them grow and you want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's symbiotic. We all root for each other.
Yeah. How long have you been in business? When did you start your translating services?
About 15 years ago.
Okay.
It was just myself and little by little, I believe in the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And I just believed and I just kept building on more staff. And as I added more staff, more clients came on board. And right now we're up to 7 staff members and about 25 interpreters that work for us every week.
That's awesome. And I love that she's like an abundance mindset because we have
Yes.
somebody in Orlando that's a translator. She's like our member of
right.
our group. And one of the things that, like, oftentimes we find women and people that are entrepreneurs and business owners that they don't want to meet people that do the same thing. Right. And I'm like, that's so terrible because I
Right.
actually want to meet somebody that's been more successful than me in real estate, right? Because I want to learn from that person, right?
Exactly.
And so our group and our culture has been very different, but I love that she's now like coming to work with you. She mentioned that she was like working on projects with you, which I think is fantastic. So I love that you have, a mindset that there's definitely enough for everybody in the room. And
I also think it's good to pay it forward.
Yeah.
I mentor new interpreters because I want my profession to always shine the way it does.
yeah,
And, I'm getting older and we need new interpreters. And why not give the knowledge that you have to newer interpreters so that they can
Right.
also, continue on that path.
yeah,
That's one thing I've always loved about Miss Esquire is like the transparency.
yeah.
There's very few females who do medical malpractice, but if I find one, I'm willing to share experts. I'm willing to share stories. I'm willing to share experiences because why not elevate the entire profession?
Absolutely.
Agreed. Do you think anything that has like really, obviously you've been in the business for 15 years. How do you
I've been in
think?
the business for 30 years. I just started my
Oh.
business 15 years ago.
Right. She's been in the business also since she was 8. So
Yeah,
that
that's
also.
true. That's true. That would make me 38.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, but what do you think has changed? Like, how have you had to evolve in your business? Because obviously, 15 years ago when you started was very different than 2025, doing business
Yeah.
2025. I feel like even, I've not been in business that long, but I've had to shift with time. So
Correct.
anything that you've seen that change in your
Well,
industry?
I think during COVID, that was the biggest shift. We
Yeah.
had to learn how to interpret without being there. We are used to being in a courtroom and sitting
Right.
next to the witness or behind the witness, and now we had to find a different way of interpreting simultaneously. So I said, okay, what can we do? We can mute ourselves on Zoom, call the person on the phone, have them mute, and we interpret simultaneously as if
Oh,
we
wow.
were
I
there.
didn't even know
No.
that was
Yes,
happening.
and that's how I think it was the first week or the second week we came up with that. We created a Zoom account, and that's how we did it. So now we call the LEP, which is the limited English person, on the phone. We mute ourselves on Zoom, and we interpret the same way as if we were in a courtroom.
So this might be an ignorant question, but why do that as opposed to just using the Zoom platform to interpret?
Because not all providers pay for interpreting. There is an interpreting option, but it's very expensive. So when we do conferences, like when I did the G8 Summit,
Right.
it was there, and we could just toggle back and forth, and the audience could pick the language that they wanted to hear. But not everybody, the courts definitely
Sure.
don't pay for that. So
Oh, I
we
thought
have
you.
found a
I thought
workaround.
you were asking like when it's on Zoom, why can't she like? But then it would be like two people speaking at once.
Right.
So that would be so difficult
Right,
for somebody
imagine
to
the
listen.
judge or somebody giving opening,
Yeah.
opening statements, and if you're talking, how can anybody pay attention? Especially the person who doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
You need them to focus on your
Your-
voice
yeah.
only, which is sometimes hard because, especially in South Florida, where people do speak a little bit of English, and they try, and then they say, "I didn't understand what you said," but that's because you're paying attention to the English speaker
right.
instead of just to me.
Now, what happened in your career where you said, okay, I've been doing this long enough, I want to start my own business?
Yeah.
I think I found that there was a need to be more personalized with interpreting. There are big box interpreting companies. I hate to use that word, but when you go to hairdresser, you want somebody who knows your hair, who knows how you like it styled,
Right.
right? And shouldn't it be the same way with an interpreter? You should know your client enough to know, you know what, they don't really like this interpreter. They prefer to work with this interpreter.
Yeah.
And so that's where I saw the need that wasn't there. And also because I wanted to reach out to more people. I wanted to help more people. I'm just one voice.
Right.
Yeah.
How can I make a bigger impact on the population that doesn't speak English? Well, then you bring in the interpreters that are qualified to do the work for the clients.
I love it.
Now, we talked about, how we've seen you, evolve. How has that, the involvement that you've seen or you've experienced, how has that changed your business, if at all?
I think, well, first of all, the referrals. I receive referrals, on a weekly basis from one of the Miss Esquire members. So it's definitely grown. I think it's also, as the head of the company, if I am confident in what I'm selling,
Right.
Yeah.
I think it shows, and I feel like the interpreters are also our clients because they're out there also selling our
Of course,
services,
they represent
right?
your business.
So if I am confident and I can transmit that confidence to our interpreters, they are out there being representatives for our company as well.
Yeah. I think so. I was recently watching, as you're starting your own podcast, you should watch other people's podcasts. So I was watching one on communication, and as a leader, like one of my goals this year is to be a better leader. And obviously you lead a huge team of like people.
You are a great leader.
Oh, I
Rahysa.
actually don't think so, but thank you.
You are both
Christian.
great leaders.
Christian, who's behind the scenes, will have something different to say about that. No, kidding. No, but one of the things that I loved about watching this, and I'm going to send you the episode. I
Please.
presented in Fort Lauderdale. I don't know if you were there or not, but anyways. So the point is that they were talking about communication and the way that the trickle down effect is the way that you start a meeting, right? Even in Zoom, and you say, like if you started the meeting, you're like, oh, we're going to wait for everybody to log on.
Right.
You already started on a negative point.
Yes.
And I didn't think of that. I always started every Zoom like that, right? And so I think it's so important because if you start on a high and you talk about a win or you talk about how, the company's grown or what you've done, and sometimes that's important to celebrate your wins and your accolades. Like, yes, I have done this with John Kerry because you know what? Not everyone's, but they're going to look at you like it's possible, right?
Correct.
Like, you may have the opportunity as well one day too, and you represent this company, and hopefully we're going to become a global, depending on what you want, but I think it's so important to, relay that kind of energy to your team. And I think that's where leadership starts. And I think I've seen that grow in you, which has been fantastic to kind of see you over the last 4 years, like originally like start off like not sure, but like you provide such a good service and you're such a genuine, authentic person, but also everyone's really happy with the quality of
Right.
the service they receive.
It's not just about being nice. You have to actually deliver the
Right.
product,
No,
right?
I
And you
agree.
have to somehow maybe, yeah, stand out. You do have to stand
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
because when there are so many interpreters in South Florida, you have to do something that will make you stand out.
Yeah.
And again, I also agree that everybody you meet is a potential
Absolutely.
client and your representative, because you might not need services, but your dad might. And,
Right.
And
Yeah, I
you-
just sent her my dad.
Yes, and just from knowing me and from knowing how I am ethical and how I try to be in integrity all the time, you'll send your dad to me.
Yeah,
correct?
of course. So tell us if other people want to get more information about you. How can they reach you? Where can they find you?
Our website is www.wheneverywordcounts.com, and that's probably the easiest way. We are on LinkedIn and Instagram.
And we're definitely gonna be tagging you more
Please do.
social media. Pat it needs to be more
Yes.
out there because every word does count, and you do great services. And we're just super super happy you
Thank
got
you
to
so
be here
much.
today. And yeah,
I'm just so happy to be part of the Miss Esquire team, and like you said, we've all grown so much in the past 4 years, and
Sure.
it's only going to get better.
You know, it's I use this example with Rahysa all the time because this really does take a lot of time, effort, and energy for us.
does it?
But for this network, I never would have met you.
Yep.
Exactly.
You know,
It's
and
true.
so I'm just blessed to have you in our lives, and
Thank
we're
you.
just thrilled to have you as a member for the past 4 years.
And you are role models to all of us, so we appreciate you. And I don't know if you hear that as often as you should, but
Thank you.
we appreciate, because we know it takes a lot of time and energy away from your family, so we appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you for being with us today.
So we at Miss Esquire hope that you continue to grow your network and your net worth until we see you on the next episode of Miss Esquire.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please like, subscribe, and comment for more episodes just like this. And if you want to learn more about growing your network and your net worth, please email us at admin@missesquire.com so you can join our network soon.